Don Chamberlain, Great Wave Engineering here. About a month ago, I set up these two test filters, a couple of Fluval 406 running on the filter of my quarantine system as a test for some foam filtration. So I'm going to tear those down today, take a peek at what's inside, see if we can draw any conclusions. Hopefully we can finally determine if this media is going to work out and get it up for sale. So we got my phone out here. Now we'll use that control to turn off the filters. All right, we've got the water drained out of them, or at least most of it. So we'll pull the lids off now and take a look inside, see what we got. Those lids fit pretty tight, so in case you're not aware, the secret is to use the lever handles there to lever that baby up a little bit and loosen her up so you can take it off easily. Works real well. Well, we got a little bit of gunk in here and some small creatures wiggling around. That's kind of to be expected. This is where all the water comes into the system. We'll see what it looks like after a little bit of filtration. So this is the first stage of filtration, coarse foam. You may recall, if you watched the video where we started this thing, these were pure white in the beginning. So they picked up a fair amount of gunk, which of course is what we're hoping for. So this is the final stage of the biofiltration. We can see there's a little bit of gunk in there, which of course is not exactly what we'd hoped for. And we can still see the filter starter balls, much reduced in size. Not a lot of difference between one foam and the other. Here we're looking at the porate foam, 2 layers of that, coarse and medium. And here we're looking at the convoluted foam with a fine filter mat on top. As we dig a little deeper, it's getting a little muddier. So it's clear that part of the routine maintenance, you're going to want to rinse this stuff off. Again, I can't really tell much difference. Here we're looking at the convoluted foam. One side looks a little bit cleaner. It looks, this is the porate foam, but again, really hard to say. This is what's on the surface, so clearly not a tremendously significant difference. So now we're looking here at the very first stage of the biologic, and there isn't a whole lot of difference. It seems like the muck has been spread pretty uniformly throughout. And once again, I can't really see much difference between the porate foam we're looking at here and the convoluted foam with the fine filter mat here. And now we're looking at the mechanical filtration. Here we're looking at the fine foam. Bit of dirt on that. This is the porate foam. You can clearly see some muck in there, but it's not terribly loaded. Well, we can't really see much here because of the glare, but the bottom is really of both filters is pretty much the same. There's a little bit of water down there and a light coating of dirt in the bottom. So here we're looking at the fine filter foam, 50 pores per inch. It's difficult to see here in the video, or at least at the screen I'm looking at, but it's pretty evenly. This is the bottom side I'm looking at, and it's pretty uniformly loaded with fine crap. So I'm not sure how much longer that would run before we start to see some restriction. The Flow output, both filters was pretty uniform and really I hadn't noticed any fall off over the duration. Now here we're looking at the medium foam, the medium porate foam, and it looks much lighter. I mean, you can see the dirt in it. Again, this is the bottom side, but it's not terribly heavily loaded. So now we're looking at the underside of the medium foam, 20 pores per inch. It looks very similar to the porate foam, which makes sense. They have the same size pores. Not terribly heavily loaded, but certainly wouldn't hurt to clean it out. Now we're looking at the bottom of the coarse foam. This is the convoluted foam, and a bit of dirt there, not a great deal. Over here we're looking at the coarse porate foam. It actually looks like it's picking up more, but it's possible, of course, that that's because the color makes it easier to see. Again, this should be the same 10 pores per inch as the convoluted foam. Well, at least rinsing the sponge is pretty straightforward. I hit it with a hose nozzle, and then basically just wrung them out, and fairly quickly they became pretty clean. A little bit of residue left, so there's going to be a little bit in the nooks and crannies, but in general I think they'd be ready to go back into operation. This first stage is never going to be white again, but we've cleaned quite a bit of gunk out of there. There was quite a bit captured there, just not as much as I would have liked. What I expected to see was a lot in this first section, and then quite a bit in the next section, and then hopefully virtually everything in the section after that, especially in the fine foam. And the fine foam was well packed, but like I say, it didn't really seem to make much difference in what got into the biological section. Now, I have no way of knowing how the load on this filter, I know it was very, very dirty, the inlet, the intake. I have no idea how that really compares with a heavily loaded quarantine tank in a typical operation. I'm just using a mesh basket to rinse the bio-home media off. Doing it again with my garden hose and a nozzle. Fortunately, I've got a charcoal filter on the water because it's the same water I put in my koi pond. So I'm not really worried about chloramines wiping out the bacteria, and it comes clean very easily at this point. Alright, so the units are all cleaned up and ready to put back together. It's taken me about an hour and 20 minutes so far. Might not take that long if you weren't trying to film it and talk about what you were up to, but I'll give you an idea, I guess. Probably not something you want to do every week, for sure. It's not clear to me exactly at this point how often the guy should do it. I'd be real interested in hearing from anybody out there what their practices are. Try to get a feel for what aquarium keepers are really expecting. Well, I wasn't thrilled with those results, to be frank, and so I'm going to try something new for the next test. I've got some 30 ppi porate foam here, the light blue stuff. I'm going to go and put in four layers of that. I mean, 2 layers in each side of this basket. I frankly didn't see much advantage to the coarse foam. I guess if you had a situation where there were larger particulates of some kind coming through your system, it would make sense. But everything I see is pretty darn fine, so I'm not sure exactly what the purpose of that's going to be. So we'll see how this works. Before we had 10 pores per inch and 20 pores per inch, and we got a lot of stuff on through that. So we'll see how the 30 pores per inch works, and probably tear that down again about in a month, and we can compare results. If you've seen the Pond Guru's video, you know that he used a polyester polishing mat on the top of his stack. I thought that the fine foam might work better. I'm not sure that I proved that. It certainly gets a lot of material, but it certainly didn't polish it too terribly well. So, as luck would have it, Fluval provides similar polyester mats about a 1/2 inch thick, 3/8 maybe, so we will put those in for the next round of testing and see how things go. All right, everything's cleaned up, back in operation, looking good. It started right up, and as near as I can see, the flow is pretty much the same. I've got them both throttled down, otherwise they'd be kicking water clear out of the filter here. But they're both flowing real nicely, started right up, and away we go. So in another month or so, we'll take a look and see how this new setup is performing. So a number of people have been asking about the filter foam, and I've been holding off on it, but I can't see any real reason to hold off it any longer, so I'll get the convoluted foam up there. I'm not going to offer the rebuild kit because there's so many different kinds of filters available. I think it makes more sense to buy a set of foam and then buy whatever media it is you'd like to use, rather than trying to combine everything. I'm also going to sell the media, or the foam media, by the sheet, so if you don't want all 3 sheets, you can get whatever you feel is going to work in your setup. So there we go. That's the report for this month, and we'll just see how she perks along here. Thanks for watching.